Hi, welcome to Berry Nation, where we support the bariatric community with humor, humility, and honesty.
You've just tuned into a podcast that welcomes you into a community, a resource center, and a safe place that powers your journey towards personal wellness.
Our goal is you leave us today feeling hopeful, inspired, and ready to live your best bariatric life.
What is the Berry Nation membership community? Well, it's a network of experts and peers where you can connect with the support, education, and resources you need in the moment to move through your bariatric life with confidence. Almost every day, you can attend bariatric support groups led by licensed mental health professionals, classes taught by credentialed experts, and meetups that are grounded in accountability and fun. Become a member today and tap into kind and caring support. Join us at berrynation.mn.co. Well, hello, Berry Nation. Welcome to a very special edition of the podcast. Melanie and I are both celebrating our 5-year surgiversaries this year. Mine is in July. Hers is in August. Melanie and I have developed a really close personal relationship, professional relationship. And when we were talking about our upcoming 5-year mark, we realized we have some cool things to share that we would like to pass on from our 5-year experience. So today we are happy to be talking about the 5 things that we have really learned in our 5-year bariatric journey. And I think why this is such an important conversation is, I know we both hear this in Berry Nation, in the membership community all the time. People who join in our pre-op or our newly post-op, one of the biggest worries that lives in their brain is, am I going to be able to do this long-term, right? Am I going to be successful? And you and I are here today to let people know the answer to that is yes, right? It is a resounding yes. We are 2 of the millions of people who are examples that bariatric surgery can be a lifelong, successful way to treat our disease of obesity. So before we jump into our 5 for 5, my friend, will you introduce yourself to people that maybe have never met you before?
Sure. I am Melanie Lindell, and I live in Washington State. And I had Roux-en-Y 5 years ago on August the 23rd. And I'm also an expert in Berry Nation, and I'm a mental health therapist. And one of the things that I love about being able to step into this conversation is I get to weave in some of my professional stuff that I do, but also my journey. And my journey was non-traditional in terms of recovery, but also still a success story. And so it doesn't really matter sort of the beginnings that each of us have, like you can still be successful even if you have hiccups along the way. And so I think that's part of how we can foster hope, is that no journey looks the same, and there's always time to course correct along the way.
You've given us so many amazing kind of one-liners that have helped us along the journey. The one that we constantly are referencing is in a podcast that you did with us. You gave us that line to think about of like, what is the next right step, or what's the next right decision I can make? So no matter what we're facing, we always have the ability to make a decision that is going to be aligned to who we want to become or where we want to go. So you definitely sprinkle in your nuggets in all kinds of different places. And I also have to give you a shout out. You host 2 things in the Berry Nation membership community. You host a complications support group, and then you host a commitment meetup. And those 2 things can be such a huge piece of people's journeys. Will you just quickly let people know, like, what are those spaces? What do you do when you are hosting either, right, the complications support group or the commitment meetup? What is it all about?
Sure. I mean, part of the reason the complications support group was started is I was a patient with complications, and the realization that there are some people, what we call like the 1%, because it's a very small percentage of people that experience kind of more of the extremity of complications, either early post-op or later on, because it can happen at any stage in the journey. So I initially in group, like invite people if there's something specific going on that they want to talk about, that we can sort of come around them and, and offer either, not so much like medical advice, you need to get that through your team, but like emotional support or some things that may have worked for me or someone else so it can be that. But I also come in with some ideas, like we've talked about, what it means to still foster hope when the road ahead doesn't look clear. So there's topics too that I will always have in the back of my mind if someone there isn't something specific that's wanted to be shared in that space. And then the commitment, in my opinion, even though we talk about it in stages, I feel like there's always something that we're involved in some level of commitment. So I feel like that's sort of everybody, can fit into there in some way. Maybe you're recommitting to something or stepping in for the first time or just trying to lock in on something. So that's a lot about habits and, and different things. And we celebrate wins and we come along people that are, struggling or, discouraged by something. So it's a great space. And really anyone's welcome. There are people that come to the complication support group that don't actually experience complications, but maybe that day on a Monday night, they're just really needing some care and wanting community. So everybody's welcome, to be there. Or there's other things in their life, like orthopedic injuries or other things where it's impacting their bariatric journey. So that complicates their process or maybe some goals they have. So really both groups are open to everybody. And at times there's specific things that we talk about related to those areas of what the actual title of the group is.
Yep. I have not attended either one of, I haven't been to the complications group and I have not been to the commitment group, despite you giving me a ration of shit for it, which is fine. That is allowed. But I know that people leave your groups feeling so hopeful and energized, right? Because I didn't go through complications, but I know plenty of people who did. And that loss of hope is real and it's scary. You need a place to tap into to find that hope again. And you so expertly hold space for people that are really in the thick of it. And it's just so needed and necessary for a lot of people, because even though complications are rare, they still happen. And we have to have a place to go to reconnect with that hope. And if you are 1 year post-op in your bariatric journey, you know that commitment stage hits hard. And when it hits, it is no fun. And to have a dedicated place to just go and speak your truth and to be angry and frustrated and to say, I don't want a bariatric anymore. It's a place that you can tap in and energize, find the energy that you need to carry forward and do the work of weight loss surgery. It's just amazing. And the fact that you lead such two necessary and needed a group and a meetup in Berry Nation for those very specific things is just awesome. So I had to give you a shout out for that because, yeah, that's rad. Okay. Well, now that we have gotten through the intro part of our conversation, let's switch gears and let's start talking about our 5 for 5, which I think is just a rad topic, right? So Mel and I each have 5 things that we would like to share about our bariatric journey, either things that we've learned, observed, or big takeaways that we'd like to pass along to you in your bariatric journey. So no matter if you're pre-op or you are coming up to 5 years, maybe you're 20 years post-op, we hope this conversation helps you stay connected to your journey, give you hope for the days ahead, or reconnect you to parts of it that maybe you have become disconnected from. So, my friend, what is your first thing you'd like to talk about?
Sure. The first one I wrote down is divorce the word only and marry the word yet. And our words really matter. The language we use can either diminish, our movement, our progress and all that. Like I only lost, 2 pounds, or I only walked 1 mile. And I think one of the big separations with that is like almost like a conversation stopper, and it kills hope. Yet leaves possible on the table, yet leaves hope on the table that there's still time. And I think that is probably a big umbrella in the sense there is time, because this is a lifelong journey that if we learn to embrace yet, then we can look at habits. We can look at, if there's other things going on that you need to have addressed by your surgeon, whatever the category is. And especially in the beginning, for many people, they lose a lot really quickly because again, the body's just kind of almost despite what you do, it's going to, have some degree of loss. But as that slows down, oh, I only lost 1 pound, right? Then the fear sets in. I'm not where I want to be. Not at my goal weight or whatever those things are. And I think that it also keeps you from celebrating. Like, think about all the other times when you've tried to lose weight. Would you not have been happy? Oh, I lost 2 pounds versus I only lost 2 pounds, right? So language is really important, how we talk to ourselves and how we assess, how we're doing.
It's something I'm working on actively at this very moment and along my bariatric journey. I use the words only or just often, and that's a comfortable thing for me. It's just rote. And part of the work of weight loss surgery is recognizing that is something that needs to change, because you're so right. It steals hope and it steals joy. It steals the magnitude of the work that I have done to maintain my healthy weight. So yeah, spot on. My first tip, or my first insight, I guess, is I really had to acknowledge that some parts of my journey have been easy, and that's okay. It is okay for parts of the journey to be easy. And I know that we have heard it ourselves, or we know that other people have heard that statement, oh, bariatric surgery is the easy way out. But in my lived personal experience, there have been parts of this that have been very easy. And I am so thankful for those moments of ease, because there have been plenty of moments that are extremely difficult and trying. And I have learned to be grateful for the moments of ease and to welcome them into my life whenever I notice them.
Yeah, I think that's so key, because it's like, if every step was hard, how long can you do it?
Yeah.
Like you just can't. So I think the fact that there are aspects that are easy, then you have more margin to be able to work on the ones that aren't, right? So like, I know for me, and I know it isn't true of everybody, movement is very easy for me to build into my life. It is a habit that, is a non-negotiable, and yes, there's a lot that went into it, but like, that's not a place that's hard for me. And I know it is for other people. There are other things. So I think you get to leverage where it's good, where it's easy, and say, okay, because I already know I'm committed to this, or I'm going to do this. Let me focus in on the things that aren't as easy for me and give more time to those places. Because if it was all hard, then, I think about like back in my corporate HR days when I looked at my inbox, and so I'd only pull the things out that were easy. And then once a month, I'd have to just start from the top, and I had to just do all the way to the bottom, and I didn't let myself pick and choose. But that's the gift of part of this, is you can't absorb everything. So if there are parts that are already easier, doesn't have to necessarily be easy, but easier, leverage that so that you can give more time to the things that aren't as easy.
Bingo. Awesome. All right. What's our second nugget?
This one's kind of fun. Tell the truth. I mean, part of it is you got to tell yourself the truth, but you also need to tell your surgical team and your rider care team, your dietitian, your therapist, because if we operate in truth, we can actually develop a game plan. But also, you're not going to be living in wishful thinking where, oh, I hope the scale isn't going to be up, but I also know that I ate 25 Twinkies, and I'm expecting something different than my actual behaviors. Where if I just own, I'm not eating in a way that's very nourishing or within the macros, and the scale is reflecting that, or my pants are reflecting that, or whatever, then you actually have data to work with, then to develop a new plan to course correct. If you keep lying to yourself or lying to your team, then nobody can actually do anything to help you. So then you end up feeling like a loss of hope, you're more likely to quit, more likely to hide when things go wrong, and that's the other part of tell the truth. Don't hide. Mm-hmm. Don't hide from yourself. Don't hide from community. Don't hide from your team.
And I had these words. This is also the second thing that I would share. And I just didn't have the right words, but being truthful with yourself and with others is key to lasting success, because you can't fix what's not true. If you're not telling the truth, you're not living in reality. And if you're not living in reality, you're not actually doing what needs to get done to create and maintain lasting change. We have to be truthful with ourselves. And it's hard to do. I know that, you know that, we all know that. But being truthful is something we have to practice.
And the thing is like when you bring truth into the room, it dissipates some of the false power, right? It's like, I'm expecting my surgeon to be mad at me or yell at me, or I'm going to be rejected or whatever. And if you live with that inside of you versus you bring it in, they're actually there to help.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your care team works for you,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I think when you start to rest in the fact that they are there for you, community is there for you, but also that you can be there for yourself. Like I can think of many times, oh, I'm logging in Veritastic. I think I'm only going to log the chicken, but maybe not the cake or the cookie or the whatever, right? So it's like, oh, well, I stayed within my calories minus my giant dessert plate over here. And it's like, but then you aren't able to like really take responsibility, because I think that's the other part of telling the truth. There is an aspect of this that you have to be the primary like person on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're not the primary advocate, the primary person, the lead on this team, then you're asking people like your surgeon or your dietitian to do things for you that you need to do for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
They're there to support you, but you have to actually execute it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not living your truth, you can't execute.
Nope. And this kind of segues into my third point. So I'm going to switch up our order of operations here a little bit. But what comes to mind when you say that, right? So let's use food logging as an example. And if we're logging your food and instead of putting in the 6 ounces of chicken that you ate, you only put in the 3, right? And there's a reason that you're doing that. And it's because you feel ashamed or you feel shameful about something. My third tip is we have to take the time to answer the questions we are asking ourselves every single day. Right. And the example lives in your example. Why do I not want to truthfully log my food? That's a question you would be asking yourself, right? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I so fearful to put in what I actually ate into the tracker? If you don't take the time to answer that question, you are never going to make progress along your own journey. We have to answer those questions. We have to get to the reason behind whatever is driving the actions that we're taking. If we don't get to the bottom of it, we're never going to change. We're never going to do anything differently. You're just continuing to live as you lived before surgery, after surgery. And that will not equate to lasting change.
Absolutely. And I think part of that truth telling is separating your identity from your behaviors. You know, that I'm not more loved. Like your sense of self is not a direct reflection of your behaviors in the sense that because, you know, I'm not eating according to, you know, what my, you know, care team is asking of me, therefore I'm a bad person.
Yeah.
You know, right. And when we tie so much of our identity to our doing or our behaviors, I mean, yes, we need to engage our behaviors for honesty if we're looking to, you know, have different outcomes, but our sense of personhood is not a reflection of our behaviors, you know, and that to me is part of like diet culture and all these other places that you're only loved or you're only beautiful if, you know, you're this number on the scale or this pant size, or you're only beautiful if. And I think we do that here too. Well, like, you know, unless I'm perfect at my logging and my movement and my this and my that, then I'm a bad bariatric patient, or I'm not worthy of love, or all of those other things. And as long as your identity is threatened, that's going to lead you more likely to lie.
Yes.
Because you feel like if I tell the truth, then my sense of self is threatened.
Correct. And I mean, you know, I've spent a big chunk of my adult life living in that mode, and it did not end well for me any time. It left me isolated, alone. It left me exposed, and it left me stuck. It left me not able to actually move forward with the change that I so desperately wanted. And when I realized I was the one that was holding me back from that change by not being truthful, it changed the game. And it was really, it still is hard for me on some days and in some instances. And I would encourage you, just test the waters with yourself. You don't have to be truthful in some big, bold way with a bunch of different people. being truthful and answering your own questions can start with you personally and privately. Because if you can prove to yourself, oh, nothing really bad happened when I answered my own question and I was truthful, it gives you the evidence that, oh, well, maybe I could do this again, and I could do this again and again and again. And I'm not saying that you might speak the truth sometimes and what comes back at you is not what you were expecting. And what comes back at you isn't hurtful or painful. I don't think you can avoid that. But telling the truth and answering my own questions has been one of the major keys to my ongoing success.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's your third takeaway?
Well, this one's very personal in the sense that there is no universal manual that will work for everyone. My manual was being written almost daily because from the day I had surgery, by week 7, I was, starving. And I went through, I had to get on a feeding tube. And so the sense that there is a manual out there that's going to help you, and it's consistent across the board. There is no one size fits all. And learning to accept that. And it doesn't mean there aren't some principles that apply to everybody or things to get you started, but everybody's age is different, metabolism's different, starting weight is different, body shape is different, et cetera, et cetera. Therefore, what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you. And learning to, again, go back to the truth, that's normal. Versus, oh no, the surgery didn't work for me, or my surgeon screwed up, or I, this, or I, that. It's like, you're going to have to help write your own manual because you are the expert of your own body.
And I think this is such a frustrating piece of the journey, is that many of us went into surgery thinking it's going to be the only thing I need. I'm going to eat less, weigh less. My physician, my doctor handed me a binder or a guidebook, and that was what I was going to need. And very quickly you realize, oh my God, this is not what I need at all. And it's frustrating and it is disappointing. And there could be anger and even shame that lives there. And realizing, just like what you said, I'm going to have to write this as I go. And I'm going to have to find people to help me write this. Right? If you can get there, that sets you on a path to success. And again, shout out Berry Nation, because that's literally why we created it. We realized everybody needs a different playbook. There are elements and pieces that are the same, but somebody's struggle with emotional eating is going to be different than somebody else's struggle with emotional eating. But there's some foundational knowledge that is needed for everybody to make progress in that area. So, you need to have this big, robust menu of support and education that you can pull from, because what I need is going to be different from what you need. But what we need is in the community. It's in this space. And yeah, it can be exhausting and daunting, but it's the work of weight loss surgery.
Yeah. And you got to surround yourself with wise guides, but you also have to be willing to educate yourself. There's some really good books out there. There's podcasts, obviously, that you can listen to. So it's arm yourself with information, but it has to be such that it's not so rigid that it's, it's you have to learn how to apply it, even within you. Even when I finally, after 15 months on a feeding tube, started eating the way my dietitian wanted me to eat wasn't something I could do. And so I had to develop a different system. I brought it to her and I said, welcome to Melanie's bento box, because Melanie has 10 minutes between clients. So we all know we can't eat fast, and so I can't do this 3 meals and, a snack or whatever it was initially supposed to be. So I had this little, thing, and I have grapes and I got this and I got that and I got that. And I said, I will get what you want, because part of it is to learn how to avoid grazing and some of those old habits. But the truth is, volume-wise, I could not do what she wanted. So I worked with my body and figured, okay, I know what calories I need. How do I get there? And so the bento box is really what has worked for me. And she, was fine with it, And so because of my unique situation, we found a plan that worked for me. right? There are foods that you can eat that I can't eat. I'm bitter Betty about salmon, and I will be for the rest of my life, being from the Northwest, that my body hates it now. So stuff like that, where it's like, oh, you're using that, as a major protein that I can't use, but that doesn't threaten my success. I have to find the ones that work for me.
Again, a beautiful segue into my fourth point, and that is, I've come to realize and just accept I'm never going to have it all figured out, but I will figure it out as I go, which is exactly what you were talking about. If I have this expectation, and shout out Rodolfo, and you and I've talked about this too. If we set these unrealistic expectations for ourselves, we are only going to encounter pain and suffering every step of the way, because I'm setting myself up for failure. And I did go into surgery thinking, oh, I'm going to check off this box and I'm going to move on. And that's where I got absolutely mowed down by the commitment stage. That was when I realized, oh, I have nothing figured out. And I thought I had it figured out. And to realize I really don't have this figured out was a very dark place for me as a patient. And thank God I had the community to lean into, to go, I am really angry. I am really pissed, and I just don't want to do this anymore. And it became my safe place to voice those concerns and to kind of have the community and experts to act as a mirror and go, okay, we'll hold that space here. You can be here and not want to do this. And in fact, that's actually pretty normal. And just to have that space to work through that and have those conversations in real time with other people, like on Zoom, was what got me to this place of, okay, it's okay that I don't have this figured out. I can figure it out as the moments appear. And it is a realistic expectation for me to go, oh, okay, in this situation, in this scenario, in this moment, this is what's working for me now. Knowing that in the future, I don't know when, it will probably stop working. And that's okay. This solution, right, this big, bold, elegant solution that I'm always looking for is not realistic. But what is realistic is, what is the solution for today? What is the solution for this moment? And if what I'm doing works tomorrow and next week and next month, praise. That's the whole thing about like, oh, it's easy now. Awesome. Because I know in the future, it's not going to be easy again. And I'm going to need to figure it out all over again. And when I made that aha moment, it just released so much fear that I was holding on to. So much fear. And fear, shame, guilt doesn't change anything. And it doesn't help you progress at all. So to drop that fear was just, I felt like I lost 100 pounds all over again. It was very freeing for me. So that's my fourth tip.
Yeah. And I'll just add a piece to that. I think is part of what you're saying is like, we can't be afraid of the collision. You just have to be ready with the thing. What's my next move?
Yeah.
Right. So the crash is going to happen. The stall is going to happen. I'm not going to bariatric anymore is going to happen. You own it. You bring in the room. You tell the truth, kind of all the points we said. What's your next move? Yep. Right. That matters more than the fact that you crashed into the wall.
Yep. Is
that you still have choice. And we have choice the rest of our life, every day, every meal, every decision. So I think that's part of it is tell yourself the truth, kind of like, like all that stuff, but going, oh, even in the collision, even in the unknown, I can sit there and go, what's my next move?
Yep. I'm leading a meetup this summer every week and the title has morphed, but we're the people who are going consistently, we're calling it Glimmers and Glow. It was supposed to be goals, but it's glimmers and glow. Because the two things that we continually talk about are exactly what you and I just said. We need to focus on what we can control, what is in our control. And oftentimes it's our choices. And then realizing when we are having unrealistic expectations for ourselves, to assume that you're never going to regain, right? To be fearful that like, it's going good now, but oh my God, what's going to happen when it's not? No. That is not a totally helpful way of approaching this journey. We have to know the crash is coming, the stall is coming, the downslide is coming. What is the next right choice that we are going to make and what is within my locus of control. And let's focus on that. Powerful.
And that leads to my last thing, which is a quote by Helen Keller. And it says, a bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the turn. And part of that is we have to learn to embrace and expect adversity. Have a game plan in place, knowing that, like you're going to have to learn how to bariatric when you lose a parent, when you get a medical diagnosis, when you lose a job, fill in the blank, like life is going to happen. And they're going to create various kinds of bends, some way more painful, way more impactful than others. But if you stop at the bend because all of a sudden this journey is no longer linear for you, which it's not a linear journey, but I think sometimes we think surgery and then we just keep marching ahead. No, there's mountains, there's potholes and all these sinkholes that seem to be showing up in the world anymore. You might fall in one of them too, but there's a sense of like life is going to happen. And that doesn't change the fact that you're a bariatric patient. So you have to be armed with that information, that awareness that adversity will come. And that's not a reason to hit the brakes on habits and things, taking care of yourself and all of those other things that are going on. And so don't stop when you hit the bends. Just don't stop. Take the turn.
Take the turn. It's so powerful. When I think about my life pre-op, I never took the turn. I just stopped at the bend. And while I know all of the things that I did before surgery to lose weight would have never equated in long-term lasting success. They just wouldn't have. But all of those things, if I had surgery first and then had done those things, right, that would have been a tool that I could have used. But even in other aspects of my life, and you and I have talked about this on the personal level, as soon as something gets too easy or too hard or whatever, I just stop bending, right? Because it's like, no, I'm good. And that's not a way to live a committed life. And
it isn't real life. We will face hardships. You already have in your life. I already have in my life, even this week, but that's not the reason to pause, and I think, even when I think about 5 years, right? We've done this for half a decade.
Mm-hmm. Holy shit.
Right? If you look at it, if you use those terms, it even feels more impactful than 5 years to me.
Wow.
And think of all the things that have happened in your life in the last 5 years.
Oh, God. Yeah. Just in the last 6 months.
Uh-huh.
And I have learned to bend, or I have taken the bend. I have worked through it. It has not been easy. It's been...
No, it's not about being easy, but it's like you have to take the turn, right? And in that turn, like there's torque, there's, like you might have to slow down, like all the things that go on. It's not so that you have to take it at 90 miles an hour or anything like that because you're going to crash. But it's that willingness to say that the habits that I build, the food, whatever it is, it can't be so rigid that it needs a straight line to be successful because it will ultimately fail you because life will happen and it will create the turn whether you like it or not.
Yeah. And now that I'm really thinking about what you're saying, it is my last point. This is not surprising though. It segues into my last point. The reason I have been able to take the turn these last 5 years and really these last 3 years is because of the community. It has been the place where I go when I just don't want to do it anymore or when I don't know how to turn. That's when I consistently go to a support group in Berry Nation. It's when I go to a class. It's when I pop in for a meetup. It's even when I lead a meetup, because that's the other, I know we're only saying 5 things, but it has been so important for me to be able to reach out to somebody that's ahead of me and go, how did you do this? How did you do this? Because I don't see a pathway forward. And when I click into a Zoom in Berry Nation, I know there's going to be somebody there that is a little bit ahead of me. And I can reach for that help. But what also has fueled me and allowed me to take the turn is that there are people in that community, there are people in Berry Nation that need my help, right? They're 1 or 2 steps behind me, and they need to lean on me to understand how I did it. And even if I don't quite yet know, I can be honest and I can say, I don't know. I don't know yet. Here's what I'm trying. Here's what I'm going to do. And just knowing that somebody else is wanting to kind of see how I'm doing it, it gives me the energy and the hope to try it, to at least try the bend. Because I know that successful or not successful, that's not the point. The point is that I tried it. And to know that I have an entire nation of people behind me that are there to support me no matter what. They're going to cheer if I make the bend, and they're going to cheer if I don't, because then they're going to go, why don't you try this? What about this? Have you thought about that? Nope. Never even crossed my mind. If I did not have the support of Berry Nation, especially the people that show up every single day in our live events, there's no way. And the experts. I mean, I've leaned on you for your expertise just as much as I've leaned into our friendship. And I wouldn't have met you without Berry Nation.
Right.
I mean, it's just like, oh my God. We were talking about this last night in Glimmers and Glow. Somebody said, I just don't know where I would be without this space, without being a member of this community. And I said, yes, you do. We all know where we would be. We'd be right back where we started before surgery. So it's not that we don't know. It's that we know that we don't want to be there ever again. And we are willing to do what it takes to make the bend.
We can't do it alone, and be successful. You just can't. I mean, you might get to certain places, but I think part of where we're all in my thoughts is at some point, one of the biggest things that can happen for us is to actually believe that the surgery worked. And that requires a kind of really reckoning with yourself and kind of taking all the things that we've talked about and learning how to, like, I can do this, right? But I can do this because I have community. I can do this because I've established habits. I can do this because I'm telling the truth. I mean, you fill in all the things that we've just said, but at the end of the day, do we ever stop and actually believe that it worked, right? Or are we only looking because I didn't get to my goal weight or because this still hasn't happened? But we have this tool that's available to us for the rest of our lives if we choose to use it. And it's not just that tool, it's the community, it's, your surgical team, and I guess I will add don't stop going to your appointments, like I'll add that as, a bonus number 6, go to your appointments, so go get your blood work, all the things, right? So
I couldn't think of a better way to wrap up this conversation. I think both of us in our 5 years have discovered the power of hope. We have discovered the power of being truthful. We have discovered the power of taking the time to answer our own questions. We have discovered the power of being an active member of a bariatric community. And by active, I mean we go to support, we give support, we participate, we invest our time in that space. And we have learned that we have to take the bend when it comes. Thank you, my friend, for sharing such amazing insights as we both celebrate our 5-year mark, our half a decade.
I know. Cheers to you. So, and to me, so.
Cheers, friend.
Yeah.
What exactly is the Berry Nation membership community? It's a network of experts and peers where you can connect with the support, education, and resources you need in the moment to move through your bariatric life with confidence. Almost every day, you can attend bariatric support groups led by licensed mental health professionals, classes taught by credentialed professionals, and fun meetups hosted by experts and peers. Become a member today and tap into a kind and caring support. Join us at berrynation.mn.co.
That wraps up another empowering episode of the Berry Nation podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, keep the conversation going by joining the Berry Nation membership community, where you can attend live support events, access on-demand resources, and find a caring community.
Join us at berrynation.mn.co. If you found this podcast valuable, help us produce it by becoming a $5 monthly supporter at berrynationpodcast.com.
And just remember, at the end of the day, you've got this, we've got you, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.